Here's a quick overview of our accounting page, how to use it, and how to track a cost all the way from receiving an invoice, actualizing it on a bid, and then sending it to your bookkeeper or your accountant to actually pay that cost. So let's jump right in here. I have a bid open and we need to add some time for our editor labor. Now I have an example invoice here from our freelance editor. So let's go ahead and add that cost to our bid. So here's our editor labor. And you can see here, Emma has already worked on this project for 2 hours and she's recorded that time through a time card. And we need to now add Sam's hours to that. So I'm going to say add cost. We'll just call this invoice from Sam. This is strictly for your own record keeping purposes. And we already have Hunt Creative, Sam's little LLC, set up as a vendor in the system. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a due date, and we're on a net 30. And if you wanted to, you could add any other notes in here. Let's see, do they have an invoice number? We could just copy that into here. Now I also have the option to actually attach this file. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the invoice over here just as a PDF. Okay, and so you can see the Hunt Creative PDF is now attached to this cost. And the next thing we need to do is now allocate it to our line items. So we'll go down here and we'll say add allocation. And by default, since we're coming in through this editor labor line item, it's going to default to that line item. And so if we go back to the invoice, we can see there's 10 days. So I'm going to add that, increase this to 10, and it's pulling these values directly from the line item, but you could still change them if things have changed since the bid was awarded. So that looks good. We have our $25,000, including the markup. So it's $15,000 of our hard costs, and then we're marking that up $1,000 each. And from an accountant's point of view, the markup really won't matter at this point because we know we're just paying Sam the $15,000. But this is for the actualizing, and then obviously when you send your final invoice, these numbers are very important. So I'm going to add that. But now, how do we add that overtime without having to set up a whole nother cost because it's on the same invoice? So we'll just add another allocation. And now I know we're in the same bid. And instead of adding it to that editor labor, we're going to do it to the overtime line item. It's that simple. Just going to make sure I have the right number, 6 at $250. So we'll go 6 hours at $250. And then let's mark that up another $250. Then I'll say add allocation, and that's going to show up. So now this is the number, including the markup, that's used for actualizing the bid. These are our hard costs. So the next thing I'm going to do is say save and close. And you can see here now that cost has been added not only to the editor line item, but it's also been added to the overtime line item as well. All right, so now I'm going to jump back over to our Jaket, and a couple things have changed. Our real-time financial window here, you'll see that in our labor category, it's now tracking those expenses that we've just added. So the totaling up to 34,000. We can see that our markup on the labor is around 12K and our cost is about 21,000. And down here, this is giving us a real-time projection of our profit on this. So we're operating at about a 32% margin. So that's just one of the reasons using the markup properly in Jaket is we think is so cool. Now, if I scroll down to the cost tab, you'll see something here. We have this invoice from Sam and it's splitting it up by allocation. So you can see our main 10 days of edit plus the 6 hours of overtime. And then on this side, you'll see something that's a little interesting. We have pending and then we have not sent. Well, this is where the bridge between the producer and the bookkeeper or the accountant comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this allocation. And it's going to bring up the costs that we've already entered in here. And down towards the bottom, you'll see this toggle that's send to accounting. So let's say that this project is wrapped and Sam's invoice is now ready to be paid. So I'll go ahead and toggle that on and I'll just say, okay to pay. You could write any note you want in here. I'm going to say save and close. And when that happens, a couple things are happening behind the scenes. One is obviously you'll see that this has been sent to the accountant. Now, if your accountant is subscribed to email notifications, go to my inbox. they're going to get a new message here. Let's say a new cost. A new cost has been added by Johnny Tester. That's my test account name on 424. And they could actually click on this and view this expense right here within Jaket. And it'll give all the information. It'll give them how you've allocated that in case this is broken up between projects and line items. It'll give the total cost of what they're expected to pay. Obviously, it'll show markup and your totals, which will be with the markup. And then they could also just view that PDF right here. So as the accountant, once I've entered that information into QuickBooks, or I've seen this, or maybe I'm working on it, I can now switch the status. So I've looked at this, but I haven't yet recorded it. So I'm going to switch it to pending. You can see it switches to pending here. And then it'll also switch to pending on the Jaket, and that'll just let your producer know that you've at least seen it and it may not have been processed yet. Now, as the accountant, we actually have a whole page dedicated to these records. So I can go to accounting, and immediately you're going to see all of the different accounting records that have been inputted into Jaket. Now we've separated this. Right now it's showing everything. So an invoice is what you want to invoice the client. A cost is obviously what you need to pay out. And we've separated this at the top so you can see, separate it by accounts payable or accounts receivable. And then beyond that, you could actually sort these by date due and then also by the status. But now let's take it one step further. So there's this docs and reports in the upper right. I'm going to click on that. And now I want a cost report. I want all of my costs that have been entered into Jaket for a certain period of time. So I'm going to say from April 1st to today. And I'm going to say download. And now this is pulling a report. So this will take a second. And now once we have the CSV, I mean, you could do almost anything with it that you could do with your accounting software. You can sanitize this data, bring it into QuickBooks. You could set up a pivot table. Let's do this. Let's just see our revenue by client for this period of time. And you can see how simple that is. That's a very basic overview of our some of our accounting tools that are built into Jaket. If you have any questions, as always, reach out, send me a DM. We are always willing to give you that free trial or a one-on-one demo.